What am I learning as a seller of Pokemon and trading cards? Well, I'll tell you, it's not always fun. Hey, welcome back. So, as part of my continuance to produce content for myself to build my brand and hopefully build my business a little further, and taking recommendations from some of my fellow sellers in the Pokemon and trading card space, this video is something a little bit different. So I just got berated on a number of Facebook groups for issuing my 2 cents of commentary, being a reseller or retail seller of Pokemon trading cards and hobby stuff, such as games and hobby supplies. And it was kind of fun and disappointing and infuriating all in one shot because of the fact that it had to do with why sellers, such as myself, when we go to buy things, we are asking such low comp percentages. And that's a fair question. And so I thought maybe I'd take a minute and I'd discuss that in length. So here it is, guys. So as a seller, I've come to learn that there are two different types of sellers in the market. There are those who know what they're doing, and then there are those who have no clue what they're doing. And when I first started, I had no clue. And quite frankly, I still don't really have all that great of knowledge. I rely on other people who I get a lot of my knowledge from, such as Pokey Brian. I talk with Dr. Applesauce from time to time. I reach out to other sellers in the market, such as RNG Games with Rob over at RNG Games. Alpha Investments. I've asked questions to Rudy over there about solid business transactions and ideas. There are people here in my local area in Ohio that I ask all the time, hey, what is going on? I even contact TCG Player and ask them specific questions that is related to selling and selling better, and not only getting sales or generating the sales that are required to make my business grow, but also what is best practices? What are current standard practices that are going on in the selling market? And so with that, it comes to a saddened piece of this and the beratement that I received. Because if you're one of the two sellers, either you know what you're doing or you don't know what you're doing. And quite frankly, as I learn, I'm learning more about how to do things better or how to do things correctly. So if you look at a seller's market, the way that this works, there's two things that come to it. There are the local game stores or local card shops, and then those are brick and mortar stores. And then you've got people like me who are strictly online, or you've got people like Brian over at Pokey who are strictly online. And the difficulty that we face as sellers, both in a physical store and in an online atmosphere, is that we have to buy product as low as we can get it in order to sell it for a profit. I think that's just common business practice 101, is you buy low and sell high, right? If I'm not mistaken. But the difficulty for a lot of people, especially in these Facebook groups or in these organizational groups that you see on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, they have this idea that every person should be selling at 10% below TCG Low Direct, or everybody should be selling at 85% comp. And I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it only because, not in a whole buyers and sellers space, in a collector space, you're really devaluing everything that you're buying. And what happens if you devalued 85% of 85%? It's ridiculous. You devalue 85% of 85%, and then you keep doing that. And so one of the comments that was made in one of the Facebook groups was that this individual, I'm assuming is a collector, said, hey, if we start buying stuff at 85% and then selling at 85% and buying at 85% and selling at 85%, eventually it'll go from being $100 in sales to 1 penny. And we can all have a good time buying and selling at 1 penny. And the reason I disagree with this is because that's not how business works, right? Obviously, this individual had no clue what they were talking about. And obviously, they had no idea how business worked. In fact, I'm still learning how business works. So I'm not a 100% official expert in this. And Rudy over at Alpha Investments says he won't trust you if you're not into something for 5 to 10 years. Then he'll trust you as an expert once you've gone through 5 or 10 years of hell to get there. And that's the idea, right? Like, you got to learn how business works. But here's the problem with this. Most people don't understand how selling works. And it works because we buy low and we sell at a profit. That doesn't mean we're selling at a profit that's scalping people or robbing people of money, but it is how the market is established. So if you kept selling at 85% and then 85% and 85, driving the market price down, I mean, folks, it's already a race to the bottom when a new set comes out. Well, like Temporal Forces, I don't know if you've checked the prices on Temporal Forces recently, but the prices on Temporal Forces are pretty low already as it is. I mean, those booster boxes, I've seen people selling them for $99. You know, wholesale, those things go for $92 to $90. I mean, $92.50 is what I can buy my booster boxes at. And they're supposed to MSRP at $164.99. And that's kind of crazy because Pokemon Center, they sell it at $164.99. It doesn't matter what booster box it is, they're making it for maybe $5 to $10 per, per set of packages. They're upselling to a wholesaler, and that wholesaler is now having to upsell to you, and then you're upselling it at MSRP to wherever you're going or closer or underneath. And that's fine if you want to sell under under MSRP. That's great. I wholly support selling underneath the MSRP because that's a manufacturer's suggested retail price. So here's the issue. I got berated in this chat because of the fact that I'm a seller and I buy. I'm also a small collector and I still buy, but I got berated because I logically laid out the reasons why we don't buy at 85%, why we buy at 60%. And I'll tell you what, if you're not familiar with the way that local card shops work, take any collection you have at a local card shop, they're going to give you 30 or 40% of that cost. Why? The value of that thing, because they have A, B, and C. A being they have an overhead. They have a building, they have staff, they have utilities, they have rent, they have insurances, they have security, they have all these things that they have to meet, whether that be fixing the building or fixing the sign outside or paying your employees a premium because they did a great job in the wintertime with the Christmases, bonuses, whatever it may be, they have an overhead. B is the fact that if they buy it low and they sell it high, then they're able to maintain a constant buying and selling process where their store is able to succeed and make business. Businesses don't go into business to not make money. They're not a nonprofit. You want to be a nonprofit, go sign up for a 501c3 and become a nonprofit. That's my opinion. I'm sorry. But if you want to be a nonprofit card shop, great. Go do that. I know people who absolutely do that. They will buy product for people and give it away. And they are a nonprofit organization and they get to write that off. And that's totally cool. I'm 100% down with that. In fact, I've donated and I've been a part of those organizations. The last piece of that is C. And what happens is people like me who are a reseller, buyer and reseller, and I do sell fairly. I'm not selling at like extreme market value or trying to gouge anybody. But for people like me, I buy at 60%. Like your collection for me is at 50 to 60%. Anything that's under $3 or even if it's under $1 and a total market value, I'm going to buy at 50%. And then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to flip it for 65 to 75% depending on the market because I still have to undercut it a little. And here's the thing, what people don't seem to understand and realize is that when you buy low and you sell high, your margins are razor thin. Sealed product in Pokemon is like almost completely dead compared to what it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so I can barely buy something that is a booster box at $92.50. I can barely sell it at $99 and make $3 a box, $4 a box. And then people complain about shipping. The idea here is that if we buy a collection at 60% and we sell it at 100%, we're going to pay fees. And you know what? You shouldn't be afraid of fees. If you're a reseller, don't be afraid of the fees. You're paying for a service that is helping you. TCG Player, exorbitant fees sometimes. eBay, exorbitant fees sometimes. I get it. But you're paying for a service. You're paying for eyeballs. You're paying for people to come to your store. That's free marketing. So don't be afraid of fees. And I'm not afraid of fees. I don't like them particularly, but I'm not afraid of them. But here's the thing. If you could take fees into account, let's say it's 15%. Sometimes it's even more. Sometimes it's 24, 25%. And you're buying a collection at 85%, you're already underwater. You're already losing money on that. But if you choose to buy at 60%, you're able to make at least 10% off of that. Maybe 15% if you're lucky, and 20% if you are just darn good at it. And that's the thing. 20% margins is actually considered a standard. Like you are doing really, really well if you're hitting 20% on a margin. I know Brian over at PokeNE, and I know I keep spitting his name, and that's because he has encouraged me so much. And in this video, thank you, Brian, if you've made it this far. Thank you. You lit a fire underneath me, man, and I am so grateful for that. And I really am appreciative. You will never know the amount of gratitude I have for you stepping in like that and encouraging me in a chat. You just called me out. You flat out called me out, and I appreciate it. But anyway, I get back. Here's the thing. It's really difficult. If you're making 20%, great. It's fantastic. That is amazing. But if you're making 10%, 13%, 15%, you're doing really well. And that's the thing. If you're making 10% on $100, That's $10. Multiply that by 200 times, right? You're making money, and that's the point. The thing is like most of these people in these Facebook groups or in these organizational groups, they don't understand the process. They don't understand that that's how markets work. We buy low and we sell high, and it's not that we're selling exorbitantly high, it's that we're selling high enough to make a profit. Like, we also then have to take into account time. And I don't even account for time. Like, all of this back here, like, you're not even seeing the entire works that's around me, that I have a ship station. I have a streaming station that I've set up. And this is all in my home. Like, I'm not in a fancy facility like, like Ryan's Card House is. I'm not in a suite of offices where I'm able to have a nice swanky area to have everything stored and maintained. No, I have a home office that is then considered my actual business. And that's the thing. Like, there is overhead to account for. There's time to account for. Like, I don't pay myself for this. I am grinding every single day to make sure that my business is staying afloat and then is also growing, just like Brian has, just like Alpha Investments with Rudy has, just like RNG Games has, just like Dr. Applesauce is, just like Danny Fantup, just like PokeRab, just like Lionheart. I mean, you just want to name all of, Real Breaking Nate, for example, all of those guys. All of those guys have built their organizations and their businesses because they've grinded and they're not willing to give up. And you know what? Again, I'm choosing not to quit. But here's the thing. People need to understand how the markets work, and they need to understand how things actually begin, start, through, and end. And that's part of the problem I'm having. So I get berated because I come in and I explain this logically, that the fact that there are some things that are not considered. Some people are cool with selling at 60% of their value. Some people are totally okay with it. And that's great, And that's great for people like me because we can come in, we can help them make money on their collection. It's not an exorbitant amount of money, and we're going to make a little money on the time because we're the ones who are willing to take in the product. We're willing to clean it. We're willing to sort it, organize it, and we're willing to then resell it and take the time to do so, and the energy and then experience and learn to do those things. And the other people aren't. And that's cool. People are totally awesome when they're willing to sell at a good percentage. I totally understand as a buyer and a collector, you want to get the lowest price. That is literally how it works. You find the best price and you go for it, right? I understand that. And I agree with you in a lot of ways. But if you're out there and you're in one of these groups and you're just like, yo, listen, you guys are scalping people left and right. No, I'm sorry. The people who bought all the Lorcana on the first run, who went into Target and scooped it all up to resell it at 15, 20, 30, 40, 50% more, 2 times X, all the people who are during COVID decided to stand in lines and jack people in the mouth in order to take all of the Pokemon product or all the sports cards products or all the MTG products out there. Those are scalpers. Those guys are the ones who are doing the scalping. We're not doing the scalping. Okay? We're not doing the scalping. And I think it's time that a lot of people come to terms with how the business works. If you don't know how business works, that's great. I got a free course for you. It's called YouTube University. Check it out. Alpha Investments with Rudy, he'll explain everything. He'll teach you how to do it all. Go to Pokey and he's business courses on his website, on his YouTube channel. He will explain it all. And this is how business works. And so if you're not willing or wanting to sell at that rate, then I highly encourage you to open up your own TCG Player account. Go ahead, open it up. Tell me how much time it takes you to realize what you're doing and what you're not doing. Go ahead. I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm just being real because I'm kind of tired of being berated online for being a reseller and then being accused of something that I didn't do and something I'm not doing. I'm just following the way the market works. So that's my 2 cents. That's my take. Leave me some comments down below. Buy my stuff at cardfathertcg.com. Look me up on Instagram. Hit me up with some comments in the bottom. I'm sure I'm going to get something nasty from somebody, and that's totally acceptable. By doing this, I accept that and, the consequences that follow. So appreciate it. Have a great one. And remember, you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. Thanks.